I was down my last dime. So I walked into a place called the Eighth Pawn and sold my conscience for $500,000. The money had barely hit my account when my mother showed up at my door, frantic. "Ethan, your brother got a DUI, hit someone. For the love of God, I'm the one who gave birth to you. You need to go down to the station and take the fall for him." Something inside me snapped. I slapped her across the face. "Like hell," I heard myself say. "Did I ask to be born? If you're so damn powerful, turn me back into an embryo." The words hung in the air. I stood there, my hand trembling. I just hit my mom. It was unthinkable. I had always been the obedient one. When she needed money for my brother Cody's new car, I was ready to do anything. She'd even tried to marry me off to a 60-year-old rich widow with AIDS, and I didn't say a word. In my mind, she was the woman who had given me life. If she had asked for that life, I would have handed it over. If the old widow hadn't dropped dead from a heart attack right before the wedding, I'd probably be on a cocktail of drugs right now with a 10-year death sentence. My mother stared at me, stunned. It took her a moment to process what had happened. "How could you hit me?" But she needed something from me, so she swallowed her rage. "Your brother is only 18, Ethan. If he has a record, no decent girl will ever marry him. Do you really want to see me suffer over this?" The old me would have caved instantly. But now, a new thought surfaced. I'm not the one making her suffer. Why should I feel bad for her? For some reason, looking in her clouded, manipulative eyes just filled me with rage. I couldn't stop myself. I slapped her again. "You old hack. All you care about is your worthless son. Did it ever occur to you that if I have a record, no decent girl will marry me either?" Getting hit twice was too much for her. Her face contorted with fury. "You bastard. I'm your mother. How dare you?" She was about to launch into a tirade, but I cut her off with a cold laugh. "My mother? So what? If your mother crawled out her coffin right now, I'd slap her too." "Oh wait, that's right. She can't. She's already 6 feet under." She gasped, her chest heaving with fury. She raised her hand to point a finger at me, but I smacked it down. "Listen to me, Karen," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "For the last 5 years, I've paid back any debt I owed you for bringing me into this world. As of today, we are done. We're nothing to each other. You try to guilt-trip me into doing one more thing for you or that deadbeat son of yours, and I swear I'll start flinging crap at you." I guess I'd always been too passive. She thought I was a pushover. Even now, faced with my threats, she didn't seem to get it. Instead, she threw herself on the floor and started wailing, hoping to draw the neighbors out and shame me. But the thing is, I'd pawned my conscience. I didn't give a damn what anyone else thought. A small crowd started to gather in the hallway. I ignored their stares, walked into my bathroom, and scooped a ladleful of foul water from the clogged toilet. I walked back out and dumped it all over her head. "That's been sitting in there for 2 days," I said conversationally. "Smell good? You don't leave right now. The next cup is going in your mouth." Then, I raised an eyebrow at the gawking neighbors. "Anyone else want a taste? I've got plenty more." That sent them scurrying back into their apartments. I looked down at my mother, my voice dropping to an icy whisper. "You need to back off. If I ever seriously consider matricide, you won't have time to regret it." Maybe it was the look in my eyes, but I saw her pupils dilate in fear. She scrambled to her feet and ran. Too, as the sound of her footsteps faded, I calmly pulled out my phone and called the plumber again. The guy answered with an annoyed grunt. "What's the rush? I told you I'd get there when I get there. You call more than anyone else, you know that." I called him 2 days ago. He clearly had no intention of ever showing up. He was used to blowing me off. I wasn't having it anymore. "Who the hell do you think you're talking to? You think you're the only plumber in town. I'm calling to tell you not to bother coming." The mention of losing money made him panic. "Wait, don't do that. I've got a family to feed, man. You can't do this to me." Another guilt trip. I roll my eyes. "Not my damn problem. If you can't afford them, dump them in the woods for all I care. It's my money. I'll hire who I want. You don't get a say in it." I slammed the phone down. Lying back on my bed, I felt a wave of relief. It was exhilarating. Damaging a person's pride was more effective than any physical blow. I bet that plumber was kicking himself right now. I'd spent thousands on his services over the years, often paying for issues caused by the apartment below me. The old, foolish me just took the hit every time someone invoked some kind of moral obligation. If it weren't for the Eighth Pawn, I don't know how long I would have let people lead me around by the nose. I sighed, my mind drifting back to 3 hours earlier. The city bus was packed. An old man with a flushed, ruddy face got on. Despite being exhausted after a long day at work, I dragged myself to my feet and gave him my seat. No good deed goes unpunished. Just as I was getting off, he snatched my wallet and ran. I chased him, and without realizing it, I ended up in a strange, antique-style house tucked away in an alley. Behind a desk made of polished dark wood sat a woman in a striking red dress. She saw me and gave me a wicked smile. "Welcome to the 8th pawn. I know all about your situation. Your poverty is your greatest burden. I can give you $500,000 to solve it. But you'll have to pawn one of 3 things: your conscience, your health, or your kindness." I'd heard stories about places like this. I knew they never made a deal they didn't profit from. Sure, $500,000 would fix a lot of my problems, but I didn't want to get caught in that kind of web. Greed is a slippery slope. I was afraid that if I started, I'd end up pawning my own soul. I was about to refuse when my uncle called. His grandson was sick and needed a liver transplant. I wanted to say no, but he immediately started laying on the guilt. He told me to do it for the memory of my dead grandparents, to save his grandson's life. In that moment, I just felt so tired. Tired of it all. I thought, instead of being manipulated by these people for the rest of my life, why not take a gamble? So I chose to pawn my conscience. I thought it might have been a hallucination, but after I left the 8th pawn, I found the old man who stole my wallet and dragged him to the nearest police station. That's when I knew it was real. The old me would have let him go the moment he started crying about how hard his life was. On the way home, I ran into a woman who looked like a stranger, but felt incredibly familiar. She smiled at me with a look of relief. "Congratulations. You've finally broken the guilt curse." I had no idea what she was talking about. I wanted to ask more, but she vanished into thin air. For I was drifting off when a knock echoed from my front door. I recognized the voice. It was my cousin's wife, Brenda. She was different from the other relatives, less bossy. Thinking she meant no harm, I opened the door. After a few minutes of small talk, she got to the point. "Kevin is so sick. It's breaking my heart to see him like this. Ethan, I need you to do me a favor." I'd almost forgotten. Her son was the one who needed the liver. So, she was here for my liver too. I stayed silent and let her continue. "There are donors on the hospital list, but the costs are astronomical. We could never afford it. I've thought about it every which way, and you're the only one I can turn to. After all I've done for you, could you please give Kevin 3/4 of your liver? He's family. He has Miller blood. The match should be perfect." Done for me. I racked my brain. She'd never been outright cruel to me, but that was about it. Isn't that just basic human decency? She swallowed hard and pressed on. "Don't worry, the liver regenerates. It won't affect your health, and I'll be grateful to you for the rest of my life." She made it sound so simple. If it was so simple, why wasn't she doing it herself? She didn't want to go under the knife, but I was supposed to. Thankfully, my conscience was gone. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. I looked at her coldly. "I'm not his father. Why the hell should I give him my liver? Brenda, I gotta hand it to you. You have more nerve than anyone I've ever met. You gave me a few of your husband's old shirts, and now you think you're entitled to my internal organs? Wake up. You're dreaming." She stared at me, aghast. "What? What's happened to you? Don't you care if I go on the family group chat and tell everyone what a heartless, ungrateful person you are? You know." I was done listening. I cut her off. "Go ahead." I couldn't care less about having a reputation for being a good person. She tried to speak again, but I spit a wad of phlegm on her face. "And don't you ever bring up those damn hand-me-downs to guilt-trip me again. It won't work." I thought for a moment. "If I remember correctly, you gave me 4 old shirts and 3 pairs of worn-out pants. I'll go on Amazon later and order you a few new outfits to replace them. See how generous I am. I buy new, not like a cheapskate like you." Then, with no regard for our family connection, I grabbed a broom and started shoving her out the door. As I slammed it shut, her true colors showed. "You just wait, Ethan Miller. You'll regret this. If you won't save my son, I'll make sure every single person in this family despises you." She was true to her word. 5 minutes later, a notification popped up from the Miller Family Fun group chat. "Brenda, that monster Ethan Miller. After I was so good to him. His own cousin is dying, and he won't even donate part of his liver. I was too kind. A snake like that will get what's coming to him one day. Her kind? That was the funniest joke I'd heard all day. The chat was filled with a bunch of hypocrites. As long as it wasn't their problem, they were happy to tell others how to be generous. Uncle Frank, we're family. Why are you being so petty? It's just a liver. It's not a big deal. Just give it to Kevin. I couldn't resist replying. Ethan, at Uncle Frank, if it's such a small thing, why don't you do it? You're an old man about to kick the bucket anyway. Oh, I almost forgot. 3 years ago when you got arrested for soliciting a prostitute. Who was it that bailed you out? Once I started, I couldn't stop. I aired all their dirty laundry. How my cousin Jessica was sleeping with her married boss. How my other cousin Mark was secretly gay. I held nothing back. A few moments later, the chat exploded. A flood of 60-second voice memos came pouring in. I didn't need to listen to know they were all cursing me out. To save myself the headache, I ignored them and typed another message. Ethan, and you at Brenda. I didn't want to make this ugly, but since you have no shame, I don't need it either. Before I could hit send, my phone rang. It was her. Ethan, please don't send it. The older folks are in that group. You'll give them a heart attack. Good, I replied flatly. I'd be thrilled if they all dropped dead. I hung up before she could say another word and sent a video to the group. It was a clip of her sleeping with someone else the day before her wedding. The guy in the video was an old high school buddy of mine, 3 years older. He was always sending it to me to show off his conquests, mocking me because at 23, I'd never even held a girl's hand. Brenda found out a month ago when she borrowed my phone. She tried to delete it, but my buddy would just send it again a week later. She begged me, threatened to kill herself if I ever told anyone. I didn't want a death on my conscience, so I kept my mouth shut. I also thought it would bring shame to the whole family. But now, I didn't even care about my own reputation. Why should I care about hers? A minute later, the group chat went into a full-blown meltdown. I watched the messages from the self-righteous old-timers condemning her, and a slow smile spread across my face. I made sure to tag my cuckolded cousin. Ethan, at David Miller, man, I feel for you. But before you go beat up Brenda, you should probably take Kevin for a DNA test. If he's not yours, congratulations. You just saved a ton on medical bills. After typing that, I left the group chat. Tonight, my so-called family was in for a storm of drama. My parents were in that group too, of course. But they were too busy dealing with their precious, worthless son to have time for any of this. 6 that night, I slept better than I had in years. I didn't worry about what would happen to my parents when they got old with no retirement savings. I didn't waste a single thought on how to fix my lazy, good-for-nothing brother. Life without a conscience was bliss. The next day was Saturday. I planned to sleep in, but some people just can't take a hint. At 6 a.m., there was a loud banging on my door. I looked through the peephole. It was my dad. I wasn't going to open it, but the banging got more and more aggressive. Worried about a noise complaint, I finally unlocked the door. The moment he saw me, his face twisted in rage. You bastard. You've practically ruined Cody's life. You're coming with me to the police station right now to tell them it was you who was driving last night. You're going to say Cody was just covering for you. Cody, the golden child. A psychic once told my parents he would be a millionaire one day. That's why they'd always favored him. It looked like my dad wasn't giving up. Hilarious. If I wouldn't take the fall the first time, what made him think I would the second? I roll my eyes. Don't think raising your voice scares me, Bob. To me, you're just a pathetic little bully who's only brave at home. I'm warning you, don't you shout at me. I have ways of dealing with you. Calling my own father by his first name and talking down to him was enough to make him see red. He swung his hand to slap me, but before it could connect, a searing pain shot through his groin. That's right. I kicked him. I crossed my arms. You're Cody's father, aren't you? Why don't you take the fall for him? When it comes down to it, you don't really love him either. My poor brother Cody. If only he knew his old man just pretends to love him, but secretly can't stand him. You only love the idea of the money he's supposed to make. My words hit a nerve. He panicked. What are you talking about? I'll rip your mouth out. I don't care anymore. You're taking the fall today, whether you like it or not. I'm your father. I gave you your life. You'll do what I say. He lunged forward and tried to drag me out the door. 7, there was no way I was letting him control me again. I grabbed the broom and started swinging, hitting him hard across the back and shoulders. If the plumber had fixed my toilet, I would have given him the same shit water treatment I gave my mom. Years of heavy drinking had left him rail thin and weak. He was no match for me. Realizing he couldn't win with force, he slumped down in the doorway and started screaming at the top of his lungs. How could I have raised such a thankless son? I worked my fingers to the bone to raise him, and he won't help his family with one small thing. He even hits me. I don't want to live anymore. No wonder people say couples start to resemble each other after a while. His little tantrum was a carbon copy of my mom's. His wailing brought the neighbors out again. The old busybody from across the hall, the one with the biggest mouth, pointed a wrinkled finger at me. Thank God you're not my son. If I had a son like you, I'd have no one to take care of me in my old age. She then turned to the small crowd. Everyone get a good look at this monster. If you have daughters, remember this face. Never let them marry him. A beast who hits his own father will definitely be a wife beater. There was a reason she was so worked up. A few weeks ago, her son had been caught taking upskirt photos of girls, and the victims had shown up at her door. To protect her son's reputation, she tried to claim I was the one who put him up to it. Since she wasn't family and had never done a single thing for me, her guilt-tripping had no effect. I refused, and she'd hated my guts ever since. Now she finally had a chance to ruin me, and she was seizing it. I allowed a soft laugh. Who even wants to get married these days? Yell all you want. I'd love for more people to watch. People are always afraid of someone with fewer morals than they have. She was instantly speechless. Seeing this, I smirked and addressed the crowd. I bet you all didn't know this, but this sweet old lady here is pregnant with her son-in-law's baby. And no, it wasn't IVF. Can't blame her, I guess. Her son-in-law has a little bit of money. I couldn't help but cover my mouth to stifle a laugh. It was true. Her daughter was infertile. Afraid her son-in-law would divorce her for not producing an heir, the old woman took matters into her own hands. I happened to walk by one day when their door wasn't properly closed and saw everything. I mimicked her earlier tone. And this lovely woman has an unmarried son. Any families with daughters out there, you'd better be careful. You don't want to marry into a family with no values. Faced with the pointing fingers and whispers of the crowd, she started to panic. As she was about to make a denial, I leaned in and whispered in her ear, I have a video of you and your son-in-law. If you don't want me to post it, you'll go back into your apartment right now. In reality, the old me, full of moral righteousness, would never have filmed something like that. I was bluffing, but it worked. Terrified of being exposed, she scurried back inside. I imagined she wouldn't be living here much longer. Seeing that no one could control me, my father grew more desperate. Ethan, have you no decency? How could you say something like that? How is she supposed to face people now? If she does something drastic because of this, won't your conscience bother you? Oh wow, I laughed. You've been hanging out with Mom too much. You've learned how to guilt-trip people too. You two really are a match set. I raised an eyebrow. And what's a conscience? She was brave enough to do it. She should be brave enough to face the consequences. You're a piece of work, you know that? You're more concerned about a stranger's feelings than your own son's. He was so angry he was sputtering, just glaring at me with pure hatred. Seeing him wanted to hit me, but being unable to do anything about it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. When I finished laughing, I leaned in close to his ear. Why don't you go worry about your precious son before you start worrying about other people, okay? Now get the hell out of here, you old bastard. If you don't leave, I'm calling the cops. With that, I slammed the door in his face. I didn't care what kind of stories he was telling the neighbors about his ungrateful son. After a short break, I called a real estate agent. It was time to move. Too many people knew where I lived. If the interruptions continued, I was going to lose my mind. And thanks to the pawn shop, I had $500,000. In a third-tier city like this, it was more than enough to buy a nice place. Money makes things happen fast. By Sunday afternoon, I was moving into my new condo. I never expected to run into an old acquaintance here. It was my cousin on my aunt's side, Leo. We were the same age. I was about to say hello when a man in a black suit and sunglasses approached him. Before the man could speak, Leo hissed, "Didn't you put a guilt curse on Ethan Miller? Why has he been acting like a complete psycho the last 2 days? He wouldn't donate his liver, and he refused to take the fall for his brother." So, the mysterious woman was telling the truth, and I couldn't believe it. He was the one who cursed me, but we never had any major issues. We were even classmates. Wait, suddenly, a memory surfaced. The week before high school graduation, The girl everyone had a crush on, Chloe Anderson, confessed her feelings for me. When Leo found out, he begged me to let him have a chance with her because he liked her too. I refused, but for some reason, the very next day, I agreed. It must have been that day. That's when he put the curse on me. No wonder I gave up on my dream of going to college the second my mom said we had no money. No wonder I always gave up anything I wanted to someone else without a second thought. It was all his doing. Worried he might see me, I ducked back around the corner, trying to stay hidden. The man in sunglasses said in a low voice, "Someone powerful must have helped him break it." "Then what do I do?" Leo asked, his voice filled with anxiety. Without his blood-sucking family guilt tripping him, he's just going to get more and more successful. If that happens, Chloe will notice him again. And she turned out to be the long-lost daughter of a billionaire. So, even after I stepped aside, he never got together with Chloe. Makes sense. Who would want a guy who spends his time dragging successful people down into the mud instead of improving himself? Suddenly, Leo's eyes hardened. You have to find another way. Something that will ruin Ethan Miller for life. The man in sunglasses smirked. There are ways. The question is what you're willing to do. He placed a small, paper talisman in my cousin's hand. This is an obsession curse. It's colorless, odorless, and dissolves instantly in water. After he drinks it, the first picture of a person he sees, he will become completely infatuated with them. Most importantly, this curse cannot be broken. However, the man drawled, to get this curse, you'll have to trade 20 years of your life. And a friendly reminder, since you already traded 10 years for the guilt curse, you only have 65 years left. That meant if my cousin took this deal, he would only live to be 45. A normal person would never accept a deal where they hurt themselves more than their enemy. But Leo wasn't a normal person. Without a moment's hesitation, he took the talisman. I'm only 23, he muttered. 45 is a long way off. As long as I can watch Ethan Miller live a miserable life for the next 22 years, I'll be happy. He let out a chilling laugh. Anyone in the world can be more successful than me. Anyone but him. His words reminded me of something I once read. A beggar doesn't envy a billionaire, but he envies the beggar who makes $1 more than him. We grew up in the same environment. The only difference was that I had ambition. Jealousy really does turn people into monsters. I didn't confront him. Instead, I slipped back to my new apartment. He got in the drop on me once. This time, I was going to fight back. I was going to teach him what it feels like to be crushed by the rock you intended for someone else. It seems there's no escaping my family of leeches. I had just started to relax when my phone rang. It was my brother, Cody. His voice was full of unearned authority. "Ethan, I already told the cops everything. You need to get down here and confess. If you admit what you did, they'll go easy on you." He lowered his voice. "This is your last chance. If you don't take the fall for me, I'm not lifting a finger to help mom and dad in their old age. The cops are right here. I'm putting you on speakerphone in a second, so you better admit it was you." Was that supposed to be a threat? Did he really think it would work on me? I heard the telltale static of the speakerphone turning on. I let out a soft laugh. Sounds good to me. I can't stand those two old parasites anyway. If they starve to death one day, I'll probably sleep better for it. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. It took him a moment to recover. "Ethan, do you hear yourself? They're your parents." "I'm aware," I said casually. "But they're your parents too. If you're not going to take care of them, why should I?" I could almost hear him seething. Seizing the opportunity, I raised my voice. "Officers, this asshole isn't just trying to get someone to cover for his DUI. He also tried to sell coke out of the back of his restaurant a couple of years ago. You guys should really dig into that. Don't let a criminal like him slip through the cracks." The coke dealing was true. He opened a restaurant, and that was his brilliant idea to keep customers coming back. At the time, I was still under the guilt curse. I wanted to report him, but I was worried about how it would devastate my parents. So, I secretly flushed his stash, which is why the restaurant went under in 2 months. "You son of a bitch," he screamed. But his outburst was cut short by the voice of a police officer. This time, he was truly screwed. I figured he'd get at least 10 years. After hanging up, the first thing I wanted to do was share the good news with my parents. My father was as arrogant as ever. When he saw my call, he must have thought I was ready to surrender. "So, you've come to your senses? As long as you agree to take the fall, I'll forgive you. And about your uncle's family, you've caused them nothing but trouble. If you want them to forgive you, you'll have to give up a kidney in addition to the liver. Turns out your cousin has kidney failure. Were these the words of a human being? Even an animal wouldn't be this cruel. Go to hell. I screamed into the phone. Are you sleeping with my aunt or something? Why are you so obsessed with her family? He tried to argue, but I cut him off. Stop worrying about other people and go check on your precious son. Drug trafficking carries a minimum sentence of 10 years. I hung up and ignored his repeated calls. Pour iblis. Especially hearing about the chaos at my uncle's house. That old bastard had ordered me around for years while I was under the curse. My mom might be evil, but he was the one who gave her the idea to marry me off to the sick old widow. Now, his grandson wasn't even his, and his son had kidney failure. Let's see how smug he feels for the rest of his miserable life. With them dealt with, it was time to take care of the main culprit, my cousin Leo. The next afternoon, I left work early and waited by the entrance of the condo complex. As soon as I saw him, I put on a surprised face. Leo, you live here too? The rent here isn't cheap. Last I heard, you were making, what, $2,000 a month? Don't tell me. You got yourself a sugar mama. He wasn't expecting that kind of greeting. He turned red. It took him a moment to compose himself. A few months apart, and you become a real prick, cousin. What happened? Did a dog eat your conscience? I shrugged. Conscience? What's that? Does it pay the bills? I gave him a once-over. You're just as ugly as I remember. What sugar mama would be blind enough to pick you as her boy toy? He was visibly shaking with anger, but he must have figured my new personality was due to my lack of conscience, so he didn't seem suspicious. He took a deep breath. Okay, just stop with the wild guesses. I got a raise. I make $5,000 a month now. Only $5,000? I scoffed. That's less than my weekly allowance. By the way, I just bought a place here. Paid in cash. Want a tour? Normally, he would have refused. But not today. Today was his chance to curse me again. He forced a smile. A condo here has to be at least $1 million. You paid in cash. Don't tell me. I knew what he was thinking, so I played along. That's right. I landed a rich widow. What can I say? I'm a handsome guy. Not everyone is so lucky. He gritted his teeth. You really have no shame. Doing something like that, and you're not even embarrassed. He plastered on a fake smile. Sure, I'll come see it. Let's see how big your place is. He practically pushed me toward the building. The condo came furnished by the developer, so it was pretty standard. But for someone like him, who lived with roommates, it was a mansion. He walked through the entire place with his jaw clenched. Finally, he said he was thirsty and asked for a glass of water. I casually glanced at the hidden security camera I'd set up. Sure enough, while I was in the bathroom, he slipped the talisman into my glass of water. But things weren't going to go his way. When I came out, I asked him to grab me a paper towel from the kitchen, and in that split second, I swapped our glasses. He watched me drink the water, a triumphant smirk spreading across his face. But before he could savor his victory, I pulled out my phone and held it up to him. He frowned. Why are you showing me a picture of a gorilla? So he saw it. Good. I pretended to be flustered. Oh shoot, wrong photo. I was going to ask which tie you thought looked better. He wasn't in the mood to humor me. He quickly pulled out his own phone and showed me a picture. He was a nasty piece of work. It was a photo of one of the ugliest women in the world from some remote tribe. But he wasn't as nasty as me. A gorilla. It looked like he was destined for a life in the jungle. As he was leaving, he muttered under his breath, "Enjoy it while you can. Soon enough, you'll be shipping yourself off to Africa, and this condo will be all mine." What a moron. He forgot about my blood-sucking parents. Even if I moved to the moon, he'd never get his hands on my property. The curse worked fast. It took effect the very next day. As I was coming home from work, I saw him at the entrance to the complex, holding hands with a gorilla. Right there, in front of everyone, he gave it a long, passionate kiss. If the security guards hadn't physically restrained him, he would have dragged the gorilla into the building. "I'm taking my wife home." "What's it to you?" he screamed at the guard. "You useless security guard. You stop me again, and I'll have you fired." He stood with his hands on his hips, furious. "Go ahead and complain. You think I'm scared of you?" the guard retorted, holding a nightstick. "I don't care if you're a renter or the owner of this whole damn building. You're not bringing that gorilla inside." A good security guard. I made a mental note to put in a good word for him with his supervisor. Leo was about to argue more when he saw me. He strode over, puffed up with pride. "This is my new girlfriend. Isn't she beautiful? A lot better than your fat, old rich widow." I burst out laughing. He scowled. What's so funny? You think just because you're better looking, you can steal my girl? If I was right, the curse also acted as a kind of beauty is in the eye of the beholder charm. To us, it was a gorilla. To my cousin, it was a supermodel. I shook my head. No, you can keep her. I'm not sick enough to fight you over a gorilla. What gorilla? What are you talking about? He snapped, his frown deepening. I decided to drop the act. You met your girlfriend at the zoo, didn't you? Do you remember that picture of a gorilla I showed you yesterday? He wasn't completely stupid. The color drained from his face as he put the pieces together. You? That's right, I said calmly. I know your secret. 5 years ago, you traded 10 years of your life to put a guilt curse on me. A few days ago, you traded another 20 for an obsession curse. So I decided to strike first. I swapped the drinks. He stood there, stunned. Finally, he choked out, You bastard! How could you be so cruel? I'm your cousin. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. He tried to ruin my life, and I was the cruel one for fighting back. He started screaming, Morpheus, where are you? Help me. Morpheus must have been the name of the man who gave him the curses. For a moment, I felt a pang of fear. It wasn't impossible that he would trade the rest of his life to take me down with him. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of me. It was the woman who had felt both strange and familiar. At the same time, everything around us froze. Only the three of us could move. Tom had stopped. My cousin glared at her. You're the one who helped him break the curse. Why? I never did anything to you. The woman just smiled. A second later, her features shifted and she transformed into someone else. A face I knew well. It was Chloe Anderson. No wonder she had felt familiar. I would never forget those eyes. You still dare to say you never did anything to me? She asked, her voice like ice. If you hadn't interfered, Ethan and I would be together right now. She turned and took my hand. I knew it. I knew you would never break up with me for no reason. Looking into her deep, loving eyes, I felt a lump form in my throat. You idiot. It must have been so hard for you to find out the truth. Tell me, what kind of deal did you make with the eighth pawn? She didn't want to tell me, but I persisted. I traded 50 years of my life, she finally admitted. The words hit me like a physical blow. A person's life is so short. If she gave up 50 years, how long does she have left? How could you be so stupid? For the first time since this all began, I cried. I'm going back to the eighth pawn. I'll trade my life to get yours back. She hugged me tightly. Don't worry. My natural lifespan is 128 years. Even after trading 50, I'll still live to be 78. But she knew what I was going to say and cut me off. Ethan, I love you so much. What's the point of living to be 1,000 if I can't be with you? Let's just be a normal couple. Okay. How could I say no to that? But our moment was ruined by my cousin. Chloe, you shallow bitch. You only care about looks, he screamed. Where's Morpheus? Tell me where he is. Chloe smirked. Oh, him. He was caught illegally harvesting lifespan. The devil found out. He's currently locked away in the 18th level of hell. She waved her hand, and the world started moving again. My cousin opened his mouth to curse her, but she pointed at the gorilla. You'd better watch your wife. She's getting away. He didn't want to, but his body moved on its own, chasing after the ape. Seeing this, I smiled. I took Chloe's hand. Now, we can finally be together. A year later, we got married. I didn't invite my parents. To avoid any unnecessary drama, we moved to a different city. Eventually, my brother got out of prison. I heard he spent his days beating our parents and screaming at them for money. They managed to borrow other people's phones to call me, begging for help. But no matter how miserably they cried, I felt nothing. Besides, they brought all of this on themselves. If they had shown me even a little bit of kindness, their fate might have been different. It's true, I don't have a conscience, but I still have a kind heart.